This is a deal that we're looking at buying. I actually was technically, my initial offer on this deal was 1.8 million. Very upset that they came back at the price that they did, to be honest with you. Completely messed up my excitement about this deal. I was at 1.8 million. The guy was basically ready to go, and then the kids got wind that he was looking to sell it. They forced him to get appraisals. They ended up getting 3 appraisals and like 2 broker opinions, or vice versa, or whatever it was. And they came back and they wanted 2.5 million. So I ended up having to come. I got up to 2 million. But overall, this is a pretty solid deal. Let me explain why. So number one, my price per square foot, I was very, like, this was the previous deal, right? Like my previous deal, let me see if I go back to, like, let's say 20 quarters. We held it for 5 years. It wasn't, it was still a good deal in 5 years overall for a little bit longer of a term hold. My cash on cash, my cash flow day one was very healthy. My cash on cash year one was a 12.81% cash on cash year one. Very high level of cash flow. You can see our debt coverage ratio, even with 30% down, which is a very conservative number, and with a 7% interest rate, also very conservative. In a 25-year term, all this is very conservative, accurate numbers. We're still cash flowing at almost 13% year one on our money, and it was a 10% cap rate day one. Now, obviously, they countered me. Not too thrilled about it, but they countered me at 2.5. I am now up to a 2 I actually countered back at 2,050,000 now. I was at originally 2 million. I'm now at 2,050,000. This is where I'm at right now today. My cash flow year one, my cash on cash year one is still going to be almost 10% on our money, which is the 765 down that we're going to raise together to acquire the deal. Between me and a partner. Our cap rate going in day one is an 8.94% cap rate, and we're very conservative on our cap rate entry price. Our price per square foot is nearly $130 a foot. Properties in this area go for $180 all day long. The one thing to consider here also is that, which obviously these are all very healthy things to look at. Now, what I'm looking at is like, okay, well, if it's worth almost $3 million in 5 years, what I can do is that I could just put it on the market, let's just say a 7% cap rate, and I'll put it on the market almost the day we close. So let's just say the day we close, I put it back on the market immediately, and I try to sell it, almost immediately. I mean, our return on investment is very high. We're going to be pulling out, 63% return on investment in overall the deal is going to spit out an 86% return on investment if we close it in four quarters or a year in a 12-month turnaround. So if I bought it and then the day I close on it, I just list it for sale for my 2.8 million bucks and see if I get any people to bite. Could be a very lucrative situation. Obviously, what we're looking to do is probably closer to maybe a 2 or 3 year hold. We're looking at probably doing this for a 3-year period of time. We're going to have, a 30% rate of return on investment almost for our investors, or the deal overall will have a 35 and change percent rate of return. What I am also doing, so they countered me at 2.5. I went back at 2 million. They came back at 2.1 now. I went back at 2,050,000, but I also said to them, hey, I'll pay you 2.1 if we can also get, I'm going to go to the income piece here. I also offered it where they had to pay me not 16 grand a month, but 17 grand a month. So I think I came to 12.75. So it said they had to pay me, 17 grand a month. So I said, I'll pay 2.1 if you can get them to sign for 17 grand a month triple net, and instead of 16 grand a month triple net, I'll pay that. Or if I'm stuck at 16, I'll pay 2,050,000. So I went back at them, but look, I mean, obviously if I can get them to pay an extra grand a month, it increases the value of my property by an extra 200 grand immediately. So it's like to even get an extra $1,000 a month, 12 grand a year, triple net, adds a lot of value to an asset, right? Because then you just take basically the 12 grand a year and divide it into a 7% cap rate. So if you could just negotiate a seller, imagine how every deal you look at, I want you to look through this lens, a very important lens. If I can get monthly income before closing, if I can get my monthly income up $1,000 in net operating income, any deal, we're talking about $1,000 a month, okay? We're not talking about a lot of money. $12,000 a month, you take 12 grand a year, okay? Divide by 7%, you're adding $171,000 in valuation to an asset, just by adding an extra grand a month in net income. So when we're looking at a deal, one of the contingencies typically is also allowing us to rent out and or work with the rents to try to get them up before closing. Because all of a sudden we just have a spike in value without doing all the work later down the road. We get it before closing, which helps us with also getting financing. Adam, you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a good deal. I just have a question related to the actual underwriting because I'm relatively new to the program and also to this like format. So I just wanted to get clarification. So for the acquisition details, the top left box where if you go back to the other screen, yeah, so that top left box
Yep.
where it says legal and civil, syndication, closing costs, how do you estimate those numbers? Do you know by experience, you know?
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of it kind of comes from experience, but one thing is okay, due diligence, legal, civil. This has to do with inspections, my due diligence, right? Like all my inspections that I'm going to pay inspectors to handle for me, appraisals, right? If I was a buyer, I'm going to have to get the property appraised, right? All the inspections you do, every single one, especially for larger commercial assets, I'm going to be spending a couple thousand per inspection. If I get a property inspection, it's a couple grand. If I get, environmental inspections, it's almost $3,000, right? And that's just a phase one, unless you have to do a phase two. A phase two could be $15,000. So it's like,
Yeah.
this is all about due diligence, legal, obviously your attorney costs. My attorney typically charges me $2,500 as a flat rate for most of my deals. However, on much larger deals, it might be more, right? Obviously, it depends on what your attorney's also. I've gotten quotes of 30 grand from an attorney. And I told him to go himself, but I was just like, go get your real estate license, go make 30 grand. Like, you're not getting that from me. Like, I'm not going to hire this guy. Get quotes from attorneys. And, civil costs, I mean, there's just a lot of other work that has to go into this. Civil could be dealing with townships, other things you have to get handled. Me and another agent are working on getting like a survey handled. It's like $6,000 for a survey.
So do you
Syndication fee.
just keep the that number at 25 or
No, so it depends. Like if hypothetically I'm buying $1 million deal, it might be 10 grand, maybe 15 grand, right? I would probably say 50, 15's cheap, right? 15's about as low as I would go. So if you're dealing on any tiny, small property, sub 2 million bucks, have at least 15 G's. In New Jersey, things are obviously a little bit expensive. You're selling properties in what area again?
in New York?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably say 20 is probably 15, 20 is probably the lowest I would go. And then you could go, I mean, obviously as you're going up, I mean, if this was 3 million or a $4 million deal, and it depends on size of the deal, not price necessarily, like size of the deal, like square footage, how many
Yep.
units, right? I would probably say it's at least minimally 1% of 1% of purchase price, right? That's probably a good number
Okay.
overall. And maybe, if you're doing a $20 million deal, do I think it's going to be $200,000 to, for due diligence and stuff? No, it'll probably be closer to half a point, right? Hundreds, maybe, a pretty conservative. Like, think about it. If you're doing a deal with 200 apartments, that guy's going to charge you, probably $50,000 for an inspection, 30 grand for an inspection. I mean, like you're a very important, like a very, extensive process. Is obviously the larger you go, the more it's expensive it will be. Syndication fee for putting the deal together. I'm making a syndication fee, so it's like an acquisitions fee. This is the kind of thing where like I'm not taking a broker fee on this, right? I'm the GP, the general partner here. So by going in and raising money and everything else, typically a syndication fee is roughly 1%, maybe 2% at most,
So
right?
if I'm the broker on the deal, would I take that
No,
out?
take that out. Yeah, 100%. So a lot of the times when we underwrite deals, this is zero. So here, I'll just take it out. It's not that important. Because what's going to happen is that's just going to change this number right here, the closing costs, like the number, the amount of money coming to close. That's all it's going to change because that's part of like the raising money. Now, closing costs. This is all about getting your loan. Getting a loan for $1.45 million. Getting a loan for $1.45 million, I'm easily going to be spending probably something in the vicinity of like 50 G's minimum, plus other, bullshit recording fees, title fees, everything else. I'm easily going to be spending probably 75 grand. Now, look, when I go to the closing table, it might be 60, but I want to be prepared for it.
I've seen that. I think it's percentages like between 2 and 5% is
Yeah, that's
for
pretty good.
closing.
That's a pretty good assessment. Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, remember when you're doing this underwriting, I want to be conservative. Like, the big thing that people kind of look at, what most real estate agents do is they do the opposite of conservative. I am the most conservative broker you'll ever meet when I'm underwriting properties. I want to, stress test this deal because I want to make it like every investor with a ton of money wants to find a reason why not to buy the property. And every realtor is looking for reasons to buy the property. I want to show you all the ugly shit about this deal, and if it still makes sense to buy it, like this deal, okay, fine. I'll put down 700 grand to buy it. Like, okay, twist my arm. Like, fine, I'll buy the deal. But the way we should be looking as the lens of it as an investor first, and saying, hey, I'm going to be conservative as I can. like without being stupid. Like I'm not going to, just put asinine, ridiculous numbers. I'm not going to try to be so conservative. I'm putting like 50% down and 10% interest. That's stupid. But I want to be conservative with my numbers. Maybe I can get 6.5% interest on my loan. Maybe I can do 25% down. Maybe I can get a 6.5% cap rate on my sale. Maybe I could get my closing costs down to $60,000, but I want to be conservative. Through being, fairly conservative here, okay, fine. Like, we're stress testing this deal, but through stress testing, if it still pencils, that's where we move forward. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
So long story short, again, these types of deals, my intention is that we get in at because a lot of it, remember, everything is hinged on this number right here, this purchase price number. Everything is hinged on it. My rate of return goes up if I get it for less. My cap rate goes up if I get it for less. My price per square foot goes up because I get it for, goes down because I get it for less. So I'm getting a better basis because we get it for less. My cash on cash return goes up when we get it for less. So everything is about getting a very strategic purchase price that allows us to make good returns. And again, look, these are very high internal rates of return. Now, look, if hypothetically we were trying to, they wanted $2.5 million, which was their initial counter, this is what a broker said that they could get. Now, look, to be honest with you, it's a 7 and change cap day one. My cash on cash blows. My price per square foot's okay. Yeah, it's not horrible over a 3-year period of time. These types of internal rates of return, by the way, on a deal, these are the rates of return that you look on for a $40 million deal. If you can make these types of returns for like on a $20, $30, $40, $50 million deal, people will do these types of deals all day long. Well, they'll buy it at a decent entry cap rate, which on a large deal, 7 and change % cap rate's not bad. You still have a decent debt coverage ratio. Day one, it's cash flow positive. Our price per square foot's still a little bit below basis. If this deal was a $40 million deal, we'd probably find a way to buy it. If hypothetically, we were acquiring it for $25 million, my resale still a little light, but again, making 16% a year on your money is not bad over a 3-year period of time. Because you're technically taking equals this number divided by 12 divided by 4. Yeah, so I'm making 18% a year on my money. Exactly, 18% a year. Now, obviously, our rate of return is a little bit, it takes into consideration speed, but this is just taking your cash in versus cash out. You're making 18% on your money. Not too shabby overall. Annualized, by the way, annualized. That's not too shabby. But for us, again, we're buying at $2,050,000, and yeah, so we're gonna make 37% or almost 38% on our money by selling it in 3 years at a 7% cap rate. I mean, that's pretty stellar. Very difficult to hit these types of returns. So when we're underwriting deals, like I want to have a deal that's such a no-brainer to my investors. They're like, why would I not invest my money here? Because the problem is that when you show an investor this spreadsheet and you're like, oh yeah, you should buy the deal, but it's like this. So like this is what happens with most real estate agents. They're like, oh well, again, look, it's a 6.5% cap rate. Here we'd have to, let's just do this. Let's get it. Let's say we were all conservative numbers here. Everything else is going to be conservative. Give me a minute. This deal, let's just say, this is what most real estate agents do. They're like, oh, I have a deal, market price per square foot is 200. We're getting it at 178 and it's a 6 cap day one, but we can, there's definitely some room. There's an ability of maybe raising rents, and then you start plugging in the numbers, and I'm like, where the fuck do you think someone's going to look at this and say, this is smart? What part of this deal is someone going to look at this and go, I need to buy this deal right now? No one's going to do that. So you just keep in mind that, like, hey, like, it has to make sense for everybody. So, like, when I'm looking at reselling this deal, I need to keep that in mind. Like, I might only be able to sell it for a 7.5% cap rate, 7.5 cap, and still someone day one, if I'm selling it for flipping it for $2.8 million the day after I close, that person's only going to be getting a 1% rate of return on their money, over a period of time. Let me see if we did it this way. Let's do 20. Yeah, I mean, not great. Not freaking great. I mean, someone is not going to be super thrilled about doing this, trying to acquire it from us at 2.85, but let's see where they could make money. Let's see if we did 2.6. Yeah, I mean, this is better than the stock market. They're going to get a little bit better money than the stock market for sure on their money, right? They're going to have a pretty healthy debt coverage ratio. Let's just see if maybe I can do 65%. Yeah, overall, I mean, someone might be able to do this deal, right? So I might be able to flip it for 2.6 the day we close. Because these are the numbers that we run on every single deal before we try to go out and say, like, hey, this is going to be a spectacular deal. I want to get a better gauge of this right away. Let me do 2 quarters. 1 second. No, we're going to do 7.5. Let's see where we're at here. All right, that's pretty conservative. There you go. Yeah, we're looking at this as overall, we're going to be making, pretty decent rates of return annualized on our money, 38%. Someone else is going to come in and buying it the day we close. I mean, maybe we can get to, again, this is exactly what we just talked about. Like, what does somebody need to make this a great deal day one for them? I mean, we'll clear, if we sold it the day afterwards, our total profit's $300,000 and we'll make it in 6 months, right? Or less. Maybe because I'll list this property for sale the day we close for like 2.8 million. Maybe we get 2.6 for it and we can make 300 grand in 6 months, which is essentially 40% a year on our money. But the reason why we probably wouldn't do that, I want to keep it for probably 12 quarters here, is because I want rates to come down a little bit, and then I can try to sell it for $3 million, and we'll make obviously substantially more money overall, and we'll keep the cash flow. So, because then our goal here is that then we'll take $1 million plus our 700, right? Because we're going to profit actually 800 and change plus the 800 and change it took us to buy the deal. Actually, probably gonna be less than that. The 700 we took to buy it plus the 800 here, we're gonna have $1.5 million to 1031 exchange into the next deal. So we'll be holding on to this deal for a period of time. We're gonna do a cost segregation study. So if you do a cost seg, we're probably going to get $1 million tax write-off the day we close, which, me and my partner will each get 50% of that day one after putting down 350 G's a piece, right? So we'll put down just under 360,000 a piece to buy the deal, and then we'll get a $500,000 tax write-off immediately. So we're going to try to close this hopefully before the end of the year, but we'll see. I'm going to hear back on Friday if they're able to get the tenant up to 17,000, which I'll pay 2.1 then, or because I'll be paying 50 grand extra for $175,000 in increased value. So that definitely always makes sense. Or we'll do $2,050,000. Anyways, I'll keep you guys posted on that. Aggie, I saw you had your hand raised for a moment. Want to make sure you got your question answered if needed.
Yeah, I think so. I think I got my question. Well, just to refresh my memory here, I know you said what before you said what the acceptable cash on cash return is and the internal rate of return. Where do you look at? What numbers?
I want this to be.
Percentage?
Look, 30% internal rates of return is phenomenal. That is a deal.
Okay.
Like I'm even looking at this deal now and why we're doing it. This is the type of deal where I go, okay, get your fucking hand and put it in your wallet, grab your cash and buy this deal. If I'm conservative and it still says 30% for and this is for the investors who put their money in, not overall for the deal. If I'm seeing 30+% for investors and I'm being conservative about it, I'm taking cash on my own and I'm going to buy this deal. If I'm seeing 20s, right, which would probably be 2.4. I just say pretend that says 20 for that. 2.350. If you see this is a good deal. I mean, someone would probably pay this. I could probably wholesale this deal for $300,000, right? Something close to that, right? An investor will see the positives. Let me just do this real quick because this is probably how they're going to view it. Yeah, it probably needs to be a little bit lower. That's why. Because I was not looking at making 300. I was looking at like 200. So my backup option is if I don't like this deal for whatever reason, Aggie, this is the number I kind of came up with, was that I could probably flip this deal for $2.25 million, and I could, someone else would be very thrilled to buy an 8% cap rate day one, and a 20% rate of return for investors, or a 24. Ideally, we're looking for like 25s ideally, but 20s are good. 20s are still like, I could broker this off market all day long. I could wholesale this deal all day long and still make some money. So you want a 20 here.
Okay, so
20 here. That's ideal. Now, obviously, a little bit less in a good area, you could definitely do very well. This is like a B-class market. This is not A. If you find an A-class deal and you're making 20, 25 plus, it's very good. And obviously, the bigger the deal you find and you're still making very good 20+% IRRs, like I have a very successful guy, probably worth 50 to 100 million bucks. I was just talking to him this morning, like 7:30 in the morning, and he was looking at deals where he makes, ideally his IRR metric is 18. He wants to make 18%. But he's buying big deals. He's buying $10 million deals, $20 million deals. He makes 18% on $10 million deals. That's a lot. Cap rates, and we talked about it. Cash on cash returns as close to 10 as possible. Because what you want to do is when you're filling this out, this here is for investors, right? Like, so I am saying if I had an investor who invests with me where they're a limited partner, I will, if they gave me the full 775, I am giving them an 8% preferred return, which I want to be able to pay immediately. I need to be able to pay them that amount of money day one from the cash flow. Because if I don't have any cash flow, this number is 5, right? So watch. If I bring this deal to an investor, number one, you're like, oh, well, the internal rate of return isn't horrible, but my cash on cash return is not high enough to pay the pref. Right? So I can't pay them their 8% preferred return. I might be able to get there eventually, but I can't do it day one, which affects the deal. Which means that as the GP, if I put $0 in there, which would not be smart, but if I put $0 in this, I might never see $1 until we sell it. So I want to see a nice, healthy cash on cash year one, ideally as close to 10% plus as possible. That's my goal.